All right, first you want to make sure you have the necessary tools. You'll need a Phillips head screwdriver. You'll need a REKEY kit with pins probably 0 through 9. You'll need a follower, which should come with your REKEY kit. You're going to need the original key and the key that came with their core lock, so you're going to need 2 keys, and that's pretty much it. You can also have this like little tool to help you remove the cap off of the back of the cylinder. It's not necessary. You can actually just use something pointed to get the cap off to push in the pin, but this little tool definitely makes it a lot easier. And you also might need a key gauge. If your current key doesn't have the numbers directly written on the key, that way you can measure what pins you need to put in there directly right off the key. If you have the code like I do, which by the way, the code that you see on this key is not my actual key. This is a test just for this demo. Now, first thing you want to do is remove the weather seal. Super easy to do because it's not glued in, thank goodness. But stop right here once you remove that seal. This is where I wish I would filmed a little bit better, but this was my first time doing this lock and I wasn't quite sure. I didn't know what I was getting into, but you kind of want to look through that bottom slit where you see that silver screw, which by the way, you don't need to remove that silver screw for this rekeying. That is to reverse the handle. So if you want put it on the right hand door or your left hand door, you can reverse the handle just by removing that screw, and then you'll be able to flip over the handle, put the screw back in, and then you'll be good to go. And you'll have to do a similar thing on the inside of the handle. Remove that silver screw, flip over the handle, and then you want to install the screw on the other side where the handle is. Super easy to rotate this, and it can go on pretty much any door that you want that has a lever style door. But stop right here. I really want to emphasize you want to pay attention here before you start removing that back plate, that you kind of want to look through that same slit at the bottom, and you can kind of see the black part of that back plate in between 2 little pieces of metal. Now that's kind of like a spring, like a rotating spring. I don't know what to call it, but you got to make sure that when you put this back together, that everything goes back exactly where it was. Otherwise, it's not going to function correctly. So make sure when you put it back together that everything is lined back up the way that you see it. So take some photos here so you'll be able to put it back together the same way. Once you do that, go ahead, remove the 4 screws from the back panel. And when you remove this back plate, you're kind of hear a little pop. That is that little spring disconnecting from that back plate. And then remove that center section. I don't know what to call it. It's a little pieces of metal kind of put together. Once you do that, there'll be 4 screws under there. One thing to pay attention here before you remove those 4 screws is the 2 wires that you see at the top left. I'm assuming most of them are going to be from the factory. Those wires are going to be in top left. When you rotate it, those wires are going to be in the top right. So when you put it back together, you want to make sure the wires are not pinched. So once you do that, go ahead, remove the 4 screws in the middle. And now what you want to do is not remove the stuff on the back like I actually did. Don't remove any more screws or anything else. But you want to remove the handle from the front. That big circle on the back where the wire is attached to, it does not have to be removed, so just hold that in place. Once you take off the handle, there's 4 more screws under there. Take off that little metal piece. Make sure you pay attention to where the wire is fed through there. Be careful of these wires. If you break them, your lock is done for. And then take out the cylinder, and now you're going to rekey it like a normal cylinder. Aware of that little spring on the back of the tailpiece. You want to make sure you put that back. Now at this point, go ahead and put their core key into the cylinder. It's just going to make it a lot easier to hold on to. And if you have that little tool I was talking about earlier to remove the back cap, you can use that tool right now. You just want to push in the pin and give that cap a turn. If you don't have this tool, you just have to use a pin or Phillips head screwdriver, push in that back pin, and then start turning. That pin's probably going to come up a few times, and you're just going to have to keep on doing it until that back cap comes off, screws off. And once you unscrew the end cap, the whole tail will come off with it. Be careful, the pin that you were pushing down has a spring underneath. You want to take that pin out and probably the spring also, so you don't lose it. If you drop it on the floor and the carpet, it's just going to be a bad day for you. So make sure you put that on the side and you can reinstall that later. And now here's where you need the follower. This is extremely important. If you don't use a follower and you pull off, I don't know what that piece is called, like that bar that's on top of where the pins are, there's other pins inside that will pop out with little springs. The purpose of this follower is to keep those pins and springs inside that little sleeve. If you don't do that, they're all going to pop out and you're not going to have a fun day. So put the follower on the back and then push off that sleeve right onto it, and that way you get access to the lower pins. Go ahead, pop out all those lower pins. You probably don't know what numbers they are anyways. Use your key from your original Schlage lock, or if you have to measure it, use the little key gauge to measure your current key and put in the pin numbers in order. And if you did it right, you can actually switch out the core key for your current key, and those pins should line up nice and straight, and none of them should stick down, none of them should stick up. It should be completely flat on the cylinder if you did it correctly. And now go ahead and take your follower and push the body back on to the cylinder. Hopefully that goes well for you. Just make sure it's all next to each other and nice and even, and you shouldn't have any issues. And once it's back on, you'll be able to put the tail and the cap back on. You can use the tool if you have it, otherwise you're gonna have to use a screwdriver or a pin to push that pin back in, and then everything else is just in reverse. You just want to put it back into the housing, put the bracket on, put the screws on. Just be aware of the things I've already mentioned with the brackets and the wires. You want to be extra cautious here, because if it's not in the right place, the lock will not function correctly. Overall, it's really not that bad to do now that I've figured out how to do it. First time I did it, I made a couple mistakes, but here you can probably do it in like 15 minutes. Maybe if it's your first time, maybe a half hour. All in all, pretty easy to do. Love that you're able to rekey this to a Schlage-like lock key. But if you have a 6-pin, unfortunately, I don't know about bigger cylinders or different cylinders. Quick set, I just don't know enough about what is out there on the market that will fit into this lock. All I know is I can rekey this to my 5-pin Schlage-like lock, so all my locks are exactly the same. All my keys are the same in my house, even though I really haven't used a key in probably about 5 years now. But nevertheless, I only want to have one key for all the locks. All right, guys, I hope this video was helpful. If it did, smash that like button. Let me know what you guys think. Are you going to rekey this or not? Let me know down in the comments below.